Okay, but what about that other empty seat? There were only 15 of us to begin with, so why are there 16 seats? She must have been attacked in the main room first. Then she ran to the bathroom to try and hide. The killer followed her in, and that's where they finished the job. Hina seems the obvious candidate. After all, she just said she was in the dining hall. But if it wasn't either of you, then what other possibility is there? The reason all the hair was gone was to remove any trace that Sayaka had ever been there. That makes sense, does it not? What do you mean? Okay, but then why would the killer even think the door was locked in the first place? Everyone should have known you can't lock any of the boys' bathrooms. Does no one have any other thoughts or questions? It does not matter how trivial they may seem. Oh, but can we be sure anyone even got this note? And honestly, even if they did, I do not think they are at all involved in what happened. Would you like to hear what I have to say? Very well then. Pay attention. Sayaka and Makoto switched rooms, correct? But in the note, the place they were asked to come to, it specifically says, my room. Exactly. The room that Makoto was staying in. So in other words, even if someone did read the note and did what it said, they would not have any connection to what happened. They got switched? Sayaka fought with her killer there in the room, yes? Perhaps the answer to our previous question lies in that initial struggle, which brings up another point. Makoto, Sayaka was the one who suggested you two switch rooms, correct? Maybe the reason she wanted to switch rooms was so that she could pin the crime on you. That is a possibility, is it not? That would also explain why she would switch the nameplates. She wanted to get whoever she had targeted to come to Makoto's room, where she was staying, and by committing the murder there, instead of her room, that would implicate Makoto. But for that to work, the target had to be lured out, while still keeping the room swap a secret. If the target knew she had switched rooms, they would have become suspicious right away. But in the end, her plan backfired. She launched her attack with the knife, then found herself under attack in turn. That must be when her wrist got broken, and she was forced to drop the knife. Do we really have time for all that? Well, before we get too far into that, I need to ask, can we really be sure that Sayaka is the one who wrote it? But one piece burned off and got left behind. A target 30 feet away would surely be little challenge for the ultimate baseball star. Then it would seem we are finished here. You're saying Genocide Jack is one of us? But I cannot imagine anyone other than you could murder someone in such a bizarre fashion. Perhaps if you had an alibi, that would change things. What is your point? That does make some amount of sense. Then the reason he pushed the theory of Genocide Jack being the killer so hard was because he wanted to pin the crime on her. But Chihiro was suspended with, it was some kind of rope. Was it not? So you're saying that maybe the posters were switched? Then, does that mean that the carpets were switched too? But why would anyone do that? I can certainly follow your reasoning, but why would the culprit bother doing that? Why would they go to all that trouble of switching the scene of the crime? Actually, an even bigger question. If the murder did take place in the boys' locker room, then how did Chihiro get in the boys' locker room in the first place? To get into the locker rooms, you have to swipe your e-handbook across the card reader device, but Chihiro's handbook should have only allowed her access to the girls' locker room. She had no way to get into the boys' locker room to begin with. I highly doubt that. Is it really possible? Could Chihiro really have gotten into the boys' locker room somehow? Plus, isn't there a regulation against using someone else's handbook? And you think that might be because it doesn't have anything to do with him? That's true. Very well then. I'm with you too. Now that you mention it, yes, I did see him. Oh, but I suppose only Makoto knows about this. The rest of you had no idea, did you? That is why you're all making such ugly noises. It was last night, right before nighttime. I saw Chihiro in the dormitory warehouse. I saw him stuffing a track jacket into a duffel bag, and then, I assume, he headed off to exercise. And that is when he said something that struck me as rather odd. Chihiro told me he was in a hurry. But why would he be in a hurry? Only if someone were waiting for him, I should think. Which means that conversely, he must have trusted whoever he was meeting with very much. Enough so that he was willing to risk his secret being revealed. Are you sure about that? You really think we can figure out who did it based on 2 pieces of evidence that we don't have? The bag was just a normal duffel bag from the warehouse. All the bags in there are the same, so I can't imagine what would make that one special. Did any of that really help us get any closer to figuring out who the culprit is? As a matter of fact,
No, that's not possible. Of course. I have proof to back me up. I'm sure Byakuya ducked under the table during the blackout. Byakuya couldn't see in the dark either. I doubt he could have seen the killer. Why do you say that? So, are you saying Byakuya was the one who used those night vision goggles? This may be off topic, but why was Byakuya acting so paranoid? Not only did he bring a self-defense kit, but he had night vision goggles inside the case too. It doesn't matter who wrote it yet. So, Byakuya became paranoid because of this threatening letter? I see. His strong sense of responsibility as our leader was his undoing. I am not the killer. That's impossible, because I was not in the office. Not even before the blackout. Sorry. I guess that would be true. It's fine. How about we stop talking about this and move on to something else? I said it's fine. As soon as I stepped into the office, I felt this sudden rush of pain in my stomach. Because of that, I was unable to leave the bathroom, including when the blackout occurred. I don't remember eating anything weird, just a little bit from the dining hall. I apologize for causing a scene. I couldn't have prevented the blackout even if I was in the office. But even so, I feel regret. If I was in the office, I could have reset the breaker in time, and maybe the murder wouldn't have occurred. That reminds me. Nagito was the one who suggested I guard the office. The threatening letter, along with all your suggestions. It was all a trap to manipulate us. He has already confessed. However, after hearing what Byakuya and Nagito said in the dark, it almost sounds like Byakuya fought back against Nagito or something. If he stabbed Byakuya to death, it's strange he did not get splattered with an appropriate amount of blood. So, Gundam knows how to get under the floorboards. Anyway, it sounds like you can go under the floorboards from the storage room. I believe there's no need to discuss this matter further, but I was unable to leave the bathroom. Nagito, what are you plotting? For someone who insists he's not the killer, you are quite nosy. She heard Teru's voice in the dining hall? I see. So he brazenly shouted from under the floor to make us think he was in the dining hall, which means he obviously hid it somewhere in the old building. It seems this is the end. Some of us have not beaten that game.